Hey guys, we are back, and it is time for an emergency roundtable. Because we just, honestly, we couldn't stop talking about Spider-Man, so we got together and we were like, you know what, we might as well do this for work and feel less guilty about wasting all this time talking about Spider-Man. So we're going to talk more about Spider-Man. Because the first Spider-Man bit we did was so brief, and I felt bad about it because there's so much going on. This deal is such a big and far-reaching thing that affects lots and lots of stuff. And now we're going to spend a minute talking about lots and lots of stuff. That's great. And just so you guys are aware, every time Marvel gets a new character in their universe, so do we. Everybody say hi to Anna. Anna is with us now. Anna is an outstanding expert in all things comics, and we talk about it all the time. And we've been remiss for not having her on to date, so now we're fixing all of that. Just in time for Spider-Man.
Heck yeah.
Here we go.
Couldn't be a more perfect time.
So, the big thing I want to talk about first is how it shuffles some release dates. Before we get into the who and the what of Spider-Man, what version of it and all that stuff, but like one of the interesting things that happened is the big shuffle of the release dates on Marvel's end.
Yeah, everything sort of got pushed a little bit because this Spider-Man now has what Thor Ragnarok's date was.
Right.
And so everything sort of got pushed ahead. So now Thor is November of what, 2017?
2017, yeah. Thor's going to, just so the standalone Spider-Man film that Sony is going to produce is going to be July of 2017. Thor gets pushed back to November 2017.
Black Panther is 8 months now, right?
Yeah, Black Panther moves back to July 18. And that's the interesting part to me, though, is it bumps, because between the Infinity War movies used to be Captain Marvel and the Inhumans, and now it's going to be Black Panther and Captain Marvel.
Which means Inhumans is even farther back.
Inhumans is after Infinity War Part 2 now, because the Infinity War dates have not changed as of yet.
Which is funny. That means Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to be doing their Inhuman stuff so many years before
Right.
they're going to be doing it in the in
Are they going to
movies.
have like 4 seasons of
I
Inhuman
know.
stuff?
They're
Well,
going to
I'll
have to
be
wait
really
around.
familiar with the Inhumans by the time the movie
Exactly.
comes out.
That's true.
One thing I'm excited about though is I do like the idea of Black Panther being a big summer movie now. I think this will be the first Marvel movie in the MCU to have a black lead, and I think it'll be really cool to have it there in the summer, because I think when it's in the winter, you can make excuses either way, but if it's a big hit in the summer, which I think it will be, I think that's really progressive and cool, frankly.
I am confused a little bit because Captain Marvel coming out of the first Infinity War made sense to me.
Yeah.
Black Panther coming out of the first Infinity War makes less sense to me, but
Black Panther coming out of Civil War made perfect sense.
Yeah.
Black Panther now either maybe not being in Civil War because they're not setting him up to immediately release a solo film, so him not being in the movies at all until Infinity War, or him being like a reduced role in Civil War and then us not seeing him again.
I mean, I think that Black Panther, it's really important to have him in Civil War, because what Black Panther does is give us the perspective of the outside world. We've got all these characters that are American characters, and they're all fighting. What does the rest of the world think, and what do heroes in the rest of the world think?
But that being said, I do think Black Panther is like the sort of unintended victim of this whole thing, because if Spider-Man is going to show, and that's another thing that has happened today, and stuff is going to be trickling in. By the time we post this, I'm sure we're going to have some outdated information. But the Wall Street Journal is now reporting that it is confirming that Spider-Man will be in Civil War, which is not shocking, but we do have the first sort of confirmation on that. So if Black Panther was going to be in Civil War, and we all kind of assumed he would sort of play some type of Spider-Man role. He was going to be sort of stuck in the middle of it somehow, maybe. But then now Spider-Man's going to show up in Civil War 2. There's just regardless of how they're going to use those characters, that's a lot of screen time.
Yeah. Well, you got Captain America, Iron Man, and Spider-Man now, and I'm not sure. We don't know if Thor. Or Black Widow, and everyone else
Black
is
Widow
gonna be
will
in it.
probably make it in
Yeah.
there because she's a big part of the Captain America universe.
Hawkeye, maybe.
Hawkeye will probably make it in there.
Yeah.
What I'm really excited about, in terms of if we're talking narratively now, what I'm really excited about is not having to see Spider-Man's origin again.
Yes.
That they're starting it off with introducing this character, kind of like Black Widow in Iron Man 2, where they're just throwing it in there. They're like, you all know who Spider-Man is. We don't need to. Uncle Ben does not need to die again. But what I find really interesting is, where the fuck did he come from?
Yeah.
Because why wasn't he in the Battle of New York, right? If he's existed in the universe, and New York is getting attacked by aliens, and there's superheroes coming out of the closet, then that means that potentially Spider-Man's origin happened after the Battle of New York, which is still a long time ago, right? If you think about Civil War in 2017, that means that 2016. That means the Battle of New York. It's 4 years. If he was a senior in high school, he's maybe graduating from college or left college or whatever. He's working at the paper. He's a photographer.
We know who he is. You're saying we know who he is. We know who he is.
He's like he's fully developed Spider-Man, right? He's already maybe with Mary Jane.
I mean, that's going to be the trick every time they've been clear about how they don't want to do origin stories anymore with like Doctor Strange and with Black Panther. Like they just don't want to do origin stories anymore. And at this point, it's like, well, why didn't they talk about him in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like you can nitpick the.
But maybe
the
they will
history
talk
of
about him in
but
Agents
they might.
of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
All we need of his origin story is to say like, yeah, after the battle in New York, all this crazy shit happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Done. Like, because I think that's totally plausible, and that's the cleanest way to do it, probably. But I mean, what best case scenario? What Spider-Man are we going to get?
I think a slightly older Spider-Man. While I'd love to see Miles Morales, because I think it's a great character, I do think it's going to be Peter Parker, because that is what most people are familiar with. And I would like to see, like I said, I'd like to see an older one that's established, but have it make sense that he wasn't a part of the Battle of New York. He might have only had his powers for a couple of years.
Or gotten his powers in his early 20s.
Exactly.
Or gotten his powers somehow because of the Battle of New York.
Maybe, yeah, maybe something alien was actually, it's not a radioactive spider, it's some sort of alien radioactive spider.
Chitauri spider.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, they could totally change up. I love the idea. When I read comic books, he was always just like hustling, trying to make a living, selling photos. He was usually dating Mary Jane Watson, who was a supermodel, and everyone was like, "Why is this nerd dating this chick
The
who's like the
Spider-Man
hottest
2,
chick
the
in the
Tobey
world?"
Maguire Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
Parker,
yeah, and I think that that's for me has always been Spider-Man first and foremost, and I hope that's sort of the version that they have in this. And I would frankly like him a little older. I think that we've done the high school thing. I think a lot of people are sick of the emo stuff. Like let's just let him be a man. Let him like put the man back in Spider-Man and just let him be working and trying to figure out this hero thing in this world of all these insane heroes.
The only counterpoint I would make to that, because I think that's what's going to happen. Like logically, that's probably what is going to happen. What I would like to see happen is I would like to see Miles Morales, if for no other reason. We don't need another adult white male in this world. Like, I mean, we're getting Black Panther, we're getting Captain Marvel. Black Widow is a huge part of the universe, but like, let's get a teenager in there. Like, and I know we've done it in the other versions or whatever, but I think starting completely fresh, which is no baggage whatsoever from Amazing Spider-Man 3. Like, this is a different Spider-Man. Here we go.
What my ideal is, and it will never happen, is that after all of this, like it's Peter Parker in Civil War and stuff, and then Sony goes off and makes another Spider-Man movie, but they let Marvel have the rights to Miles Morales to put in other Avengers movies. That would be my ideal.
So
that
Sony
will never
keeps Peter
happen.
Parker and Miles Morales is more.
Exactly. That would be the ideal for me. That will never happen.
There's a difference between saying there's a slightly older Spider-Man and an old Spider-Man. Right? Because I think that like a 21-year-old Spider-Man is still a young guy, and in that group of superheroes, he's still like a teenager to them. Totally. They're all like 40 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's still going to be a really interesting dynamic to have, even if he's only been around for a couple years, saving like stopping robbers in New York. He hasn't been involved in anything big. And this is going to be his first big thing.
I think it's also really interesting because I think when we all heard that Marvel was doing Civil War, I think all of us who read Civil War were like, but they don't have Spider-Man because a big part of the Civil War comic book is unmasking superheroes. And the fact is, in this MCU, we have kind of nobody is.
There's no secret
one's
identities aren't a
undercover.
thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the main thing will just be having Tony Stark and Captain America fight. That'll sort of be what the main gist is, and having all these heroes fight one another.
It just clicked for me that secret identities are not a thing right now.
Oh, really?
In the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
For some reason, that just
well, Thor is Thor.
Thor is Thor.
Everybody knew.
Everybody knows
Rogers
Tony
is a
Stark.
celebrity.
Everybody knows Steve
Tony Stark is
Rogers.
too.
Yeah.
Black Widow is clearly her.
Nobody wears masks.
Hawkeye's clearly him.
Yeah.
Well, like, I mean, I think even now with Spider-Man, I don't think they're going to get anywhere close to the comic storyline of Civil War.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously, it was a storyline that lasted for a long time, and Reed Richards was a big part, and blah blah blah. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they're not going to get anywhere close to it, and I think mostly is the established MCU canon. Like, they gotta deal with all of the groundwork they've been laying for 12 movies now.
Yeah.
So it's like they've got that to pull from, which is why, again, I go back to, like, I kind of feel sorry for Black Panther, because like I feel like he's probably going to get largely pushed to the side, so that all of a sudden it's like, oh, we got this new toy, we got Spider-Man, and hopefully they don't bring Spider-Man in at the cost of, like, sort of devaluing some of the stuff that they've established in the movie so far.
I just think that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, it's just going to be like whatever plans they had for them in Civil War are just going to be pushed off. That way they can keep with Black Panther and Spider-Man.
So what do you guys think, assuming they cast someone soon to play Spider-Man, when do you guys think we'll see the first, like, he's got to show up right at the end of one of these movies. Do you think they'll try to scramble and shoot something for Age of Ultron, or will it not be until...
I mean, unless... theoretically, they could.
Yeah.
Like, they could theoretically cram him into Age of Ultron.
Without taking his mask off, for sure.
That's the thing, right? It could almost
they
be
could just
anybody.
it could just be a mocap suit. Andy Serkis is going to be around anyway. You can just get him to do it.
Exactly.
Ultron comes out in 2 months. It's really doubtful that, other than maybe an after the credits thing, they could change anything at this point. I don't think they're going to put him into Ant-Man. I think they're worried too much about Ant-Man, seeing if Ant-Man will work at all.
I feel like, though, what could save Ant-Man is an post-credit scene with Spider-Man.
Right, maybe
I think people would go see it just for that.
I would like them to start mentioning him in the second half of the season for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That'd be interesting.
It would be, or some sort of rumors about
The other thing, I would love Spider-Man to show up in these Netflix series.
And they should be taking place in New York, so it's absolutely fitting.
We didn't really touch on this, but we've all been talking about it for a long time. I have said to people for years, this will never happen. They'll never play ball. Sony will never give up the rights, never let them use it. It's never going to happen. And I'll admit, I was clearly wrong. And so I feel
I think you and I have both been on this channel very vocally going, I mean, it'd be great. It's not going to happen, though.
Yeah, it's just
Everybody's just cool. It's not going to happen.
Brass tacks, everyone. This is the real world, okay? This stuff doesn't happen.
But it was a perfect storm. I mean, with the whole Sony hack and the fact that the Amazing Spider-Man movies just didn't do all that well.
Yeah.
It was the perfect time for Sony to just sort of let go and be like, we're still gonna have control, but we'll also let you guys have control too. Please help us.
Well, I also think that, like, Amy Pascal's a really smart woman, and there's a lot of issues people have with Amy, and then there's a lot of, like, amazing stories about how amazing she is. But this deal has been in the rumorville for a long time, and I think that she's been a strong part of pushing it forward. So it's not super surprising that in whatever weird internal politics happened, where it was like, Sony hack Amy, you can't run Sony anymore, but
Because clearly that was your fault.
Because clearly that was your fault, but you're still like, you're still gonna stay with Sony and do stuff for Sony. If anybody was her, I'm gonna keep Spider-Man and 007, and, like, that's how this deal's gonna work. What this says to me is that, like, she's been trying to get this to happen for a long time because she sees how much the Amazing Spider-Man movies have failed. She was a big part of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and so this was one of her, like, demand. This was one of her, like, whatever happened internally, like, I'm getting this done. I'm making this happen.
Well, and creatively, Marvel wouldn't have done it if they weren't going to have a say over the standalone movies as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to know that Pascal and Kevin Feige are going to work really well together.
I want to read that email chain.
Yeah, I know, right?
There's only one thing I want them to do, for sure. I want there to be a scene where Spider-Man is in his apartment and he thinks of Uncle Ben and he looks at a picture of Uncle Ben and it's Stan Lee.
It's Stanley.
That's all I want.
Stanley
That's
is
all I
Uncle
want.
Ben.
Stan
That'd be
Lee,
good.
I like that.
Uncle
That'd be
Ben,
real good.
and we'll all be happy, I think.
I just don't want 20 scenes. What I don't want is 20 scenes of whoever's playing Spider-Man going into his room and being like, the girls don't love me, and then throwing himself on his bed, and then looking at photographs.
Well, here's the best thing about this news is, like, he's gonna dive into the MCU and be dealing with what's going on in the MCU.
Yeah.
Like that's going to be his conflict.
It's like your problems are too big for girls.
Exactly. Like his conflicts are going to be the Superhero Registration Act.
It's not I'm emasculated so I can't shoot web.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sad so my web stopped working. There's also been a lot of talk very early on, be like how super intelligent does this Spider-Man? If it is Peter Parker, how much of his genius do we need to see?
The thing is that how much smarter or how not as smart is he than like Iron Man or even Bruce Banner? He's always a lot younger, so he's still got a lot to learn, and he's incredibly smart. But I mean, Black Panther is incredibly smart and from an incredibly technologically advanced
How many
country,
geniuses
and-
do we need?
But I do think there's something to be said about there being no Reed Richards, because it's
that's
always
true.
been known that Reed Richards was like the top, like the most genius of the Marvel Universe. That's why he's also one of the biggest pricks. He's sort of like Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory, but with stretchy arms. And I think Tony Stark is that man for the MCU, obviously, but they've added Hank Pym.
It would be really interesting to me if he became sort of Tony Stark's protege. Or
like in Civil War.
Or
That was the great thing in Civil War, the fact that Spider-Man was able to take down the failsafe that Tony Stark had put in the suit that Tony had given him. That he was able to, when he was trying to go switch sides, he was able to disable all the stuff that Tony Stark had put in. So, that is an important part of him, being smart. But I mean, everyone is so smart that they have right now.
But
really.
is he going to play that big a role in Civil War?
I think he is, because I actually think he is. Because
I mean, they got him now, so part of me is like, why not?
Well, I think he is, because I think what you had previously was you had Captain America versus Iron Man, right? Two different sides, and like in Civil War, Peter Parker was really in the middle. I mean, he decided to go along with unmasking, but he was the one that was basically us, which like I don't know what side I'd pick. This is a really complicated thing.
And he right now he's the only person. They have to add someone to the universe, like we were just saying, that where the unmasking has any stakes at all, because they don't have any.
Well, and that, I mean, again, the movie, I don't think the movie was ever and still will not be close to what the arc is, and so like finding something else for that central story. Now we can just flavor the story of Civil War with somebody who would potentially have to unmask.
Yeah.
So I think, and that's what I think his involvement in Civil War is going to be. I think it's going to be Pepper.
I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, I mean, Spider-Man is the most profitable superhero of all time. Yeah. I mean, they've done like studies and seen between the animated the movies.
Has shown us.
Yeah, between toys, the movies,
Who did these studies?
and
Marvel?
animated series, Spider-Man is by far the most profitable character. He's more profitable than Superman, more profitable than
and the other
Batman.
thing that this does is at some point we're going to lose Robert Downey Jr., Hemsworth, not Pratt, he's going to be around forever, and Chris Evans. Like they're all going to cycle in and out, and to have a draw like Spider-Man now in the MCU is going to be huge. It's a great bet hedger,
That's how it happened, really, right? I mean, from Marvel's angle, that's why they even did this, is because it's like, they're really soon, they're going to have to start paying Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr. per picture type money. They're going to start paying Hemsworth that way in like 2 movies, and they're running out of options.
Yeah, well, next thing that's going to happen is that Marvel is just going to have to start sabotaging the X-Men movies so they can have Wolverine in their movies.
Another reason I don't think it'll be Miles Morales is because there is spoiler alert, I guess. At some point when Steve Rogers dies, who's going to take over the Captain America mantle is a big question. Because it could be Winter Soldier, but there's also we just made Falcon him in the comics. Why did we do that if we're not? And we introduced him in the movies. Why did we do that if not to potentially set up him to take over the Captain America mantle? Then I just think that like, unfortunately, in the quota of minority character deals between Black Panther and Falcon,
because there's a chance Falcon will pick up.
I think because
we have Black Panther, that's enough minorities.
It's like The Walking Dead. It's like we've got 2 black guys.
I totally agree, but I also think we have to remember Sebastian Stan signed up for like 9 movies. Yeah. So he's, they clearly are grooming him to play a major role in this series. And I also think that, people like, listen, everyone loves Steve Rogers, but there is something cool about that sort of the Bucky character being Captain America, because he's more violent. He's a little less restrained.
He also needs redemption.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, look, that's lots and lots of Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah. We even
the
talked about casting.
only thing we didn't talk about is casting. I don't even want to start on that, because honestly, like, is probably going to be Asa Butterfield, and we're all going to be like, meh.
I already
But
came up with who I think it's going to be. So.
Okay, who is it? And then we'll
All
cut
right.
it off right
now, I know a lot of you will think I'm crazy, but go along with me here. I think Tobey Maguire was a great choice for Spider-Man. I do not think that the last guy was the right choice. I think they went for someone who
even say
looked
his
like
name.
I can't remember his name right
Andrew
now.
Garfield.
Andrew Garfield, yeah, because they tried to pick someone who was like a Abercrombie Fitch model, basically. He was like, kind of sexy Spider-Man. It doesn't work. Peter Parker's not sexy. That's the point. Is he's like a normal dude. So because he's the right age and because he's franchise proven, if they go a little older, Daniel Radcliffe. Boom.
It's a really interesting
Harry
idea.
Potter.
It's bizarre,
Yeah.
but it, you know.
And no one would see that guy and believe he's Spider-Man.
That's true.
And that's the power of
Right,
Peter
and
Parker.
nobody would, and like if Mary Jane is like a gorgeous supermodel, nobody would really buy that either.
Because Peter Parker is not like Superman trying to look like Clark Kent, all nerdy and stuff. He is a nerd. He looks like that. He puts on the costume and he's a god. Out of the costume, he's just some normal dude.
I think there is a 0% chance of that.
I think there's a 0% of that chance of that happening too, but I think it's an interesting.
I
Thank
applaud
you.
your enthusiasm.
Thank you.
0% chance.
I would have.
I'm gonna go on record. There's as much chance of that right now as there was Spider-Man joining the MCU a year ago.
I'll take that.
That's what I'll
Thank
say.
you.
All right, well that's all we have time for because we legitimately do need to get back to work now. But let us know what you think about all of this Spider-Man business down in the comments below. It's so much fun to talk about. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Thanks for bearing with us while we got all this off our chest. We really appreciate it. Click like and subscribe. Come back next time for more movie news, more emergency roundtable sessions. Emergency roundtable right here on Cinefix Now.